It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I am your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partner and fellow CFP, Kevin Korhorn.
You're in your late 40s or 50s and feeling the financial pressures coming from both directions. Your kids needing help getting started in their life and your parents needing help managing theirs. How do you navigate this familiar situation, all while not sacrificing your own financial goals and priorities? We're helping you with that and more on this hour of the Wise Money Show.
And I think that's the risk. Like you put your financial priorities, your financial life on back burner, or you intentionally, I don't want to say sabotage, but you just say, we're not funding 401ks, or we're not doing this, or we're not doing that. And yeah, you know, there are seasons when it's more sacrifice than it is reward. But and this is certainly one of them. But how do you navigate all of it? Again, Kevin and I running together today. No Josh, who should be back next week. If you have a question for the program, or maybe you're dealing with this situation or anything else going on in your financial life, you have a question about, have needs with, we're here to help. You can call or text us 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us, and you can engage with us that way. Learn more about the show, learn more about the firm, reach out to us. All that at wisemoneyshow.com. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Just search the Wise Money Show. You can engage with us that way, reach out, ask questions, all that. All right, so Dave and Linda, 53 and 51. They've got a child in college, and they've got another one who recently graduated, and they're still supporting both financially to some degree. Dave's parents just are in their early 80s, and Dad was recently diagnosed with dementia. So we're going to come back to this scenario, Kevin, and just talk through it from a few different angles because it's an interesting case study. Well, I'll never be there because you're invincible. Well, you don't know. Are there things that you can do right now to help be prepared financially if you find yourself in that spot? And then also, like, what do you do if you are in that spot? We're gonna get through all that. But before we dive into the scenario and those different angles, how common is this? Is this like even a real, I mean, it feels like this is either you are concerned about this or you've experienced something like this. So I would say it's fairly common. What do you think?
I think this is a very common situation where you're dealing with either one end or the other. And then if I'm dealing with supporting my kids and taking care of my own situation, or I'm taking care of my own situation, I'm taking care of my parents. But it gets really tricky when now I've got to deal with both.
Yeah, that's what they call the sandwich generation. If you've heard that term and thought about it, I mean, that's what it is. And here's why I would say not only is it real, but it's a real stressor on your finances. People are living longer, just compared to decades ago. So, yep. And the cost of care. We were at a conference just recently, and we live in the Midwest, and so I don't know where you're listening from, but we're in northern Indiana, and the question was posed to this group of financial experts nationwide. Okay, what's it cost for a nursing home? And I thought the exact same number that you said. I don't know, 10 grand, 12 grand.
Right.
And we got jumped, like we got attacked.
We got the hairy eyeball.
Yeah,
where in the world are you staying?
What are you talking
there's
about?
grassy knoll and there's gravel pit. Are you putting your parents in the terrible nursing home in town?
Yeah, that's right. And so it definitely was a shocker. They were saying, 15 grand if you've got memory care or full service. And so those costs are going up and the need is significant. And so but then on the other side, so that trend is happening. Yeah. People living longer, needing care, the costs are going up. But on the other end, college costs are high. We don't know what AI is going to do with that, but I would assume college costs are going to stay high. And kids, it's harder for them to launch financially because the prolonged adolescence or getting started in your financial life is more expensive, housing affordability, all that sort of stuff. And so, I think this challenge is real today, and it will only get worse, personally.
And if you're listening and you're saying, I'm there, like this is my issue, you need a thought partner. And a lot of people are saying, hey, maybe I should turn to AI for a thought partner. And AI is practical to tell you, like, what is the elevation of the Grand Canyon at the South Rim, or so things like that you really need to know.
Yeah.
But and you drop 5,000 feet down to the Colorado River. So, but that's not this. This is thinking through and understanding. And a lot of times, this is why this is a show about financial planning, because you say, well, hey, this is what I have to do. And if you have a thought partner that can go back and forth with you and think through this with you, you might say, well, what if I didn't have to do that?
Yeah.
Well, I can't really consider that. Well, maybe you should, because where are the pressure points here, and how is there a way to get some relief from that pressure?
We have the privilege of because we do comprehensive financial planning, looking at all 6 areas of your financial life, because we have strategy and execution, one plan. We have the privilege of serving a lot of multi-generations. And we've had the privilege of helping a lot of people through this exact situation. But I would say even more, we've been able to help put preventative or precautionary measures in place just in case they find themselves in this spot. And so there is a way, while you don't have control, there is a way to plan and navigate this financially, as opposed to just say, well, I hope I don't deal with that. That could be, really, really challenging.
Yeah. So that is, and the interesting thing is, a lot of times we're working with folks and then they say, well, at the end of the meeting, they say, hey, I've got a question for you. Can I ask you a question that's not about our finances, but it's about my folks, and here's what's going on with them. And you say, well, who's helping them? And I think of the show that where we just talked about, hey, if they've got retirement dollars, IRA dollars, who should be paying the taxes on those dollars? Yeah. Well, in this situation, you might say, hey, they've got retirement plan dollars. How do they, is that enough? Yeah. If it's going to be $10 or $12 or $15,000 a month, will those dollars last, or is that expense going to impoverish the community spouse?
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it then. This scenario, how do you approach it? So again, Dave and Linda in their early 50s, they've got a child in college that they're still helping to pay through college. Mm-hmm. No details here regarding, well, are they paying tuition, paying full freight, but they're helping. And then they've got a child that just graduated, helping the child as well. I would assume, because we don't have the details, maybe moved back in.
Okay.
And so needing help with groceries and probably car insurance and cell phone, like sort of trying to figure out their career, when can they get an apartment and so on. But they're just, the life bills are still falling to mom and dad. But then Dave's father was recently diagnosed with dementia. So no expenses yet, but they're looking at, well, are we going to have to help pay for that? Is mom going to need to move in? Like so how do you approach this, Kevin, from a financial planning perspective, looking at all 6 areas? How do you start coaching Dave and Linda in dealing with this situation?
Yeah. And Jordan Peterson says to the youngsters, hey, if you want to deal with global warming, make your bed. And you just think, well, what in the world? How does making my bed help with global warming? Well, here's the thing. You do first things first. You put on your own oxygen mask first before you help those that might need some help. So I would say to Dave and Linda, hey, it's time to update your financial plan.
Yes.
If it's not updated, because now you're in these kind of probably some peak earning years. And you said, hey, this was time where we could really do some great stuff, whether we've put off enjoying life, and so we wanted some cool lifestyle stuff in our 50s, or, hey, we kind of underprepared along the way, and we can stack it up like cordwood now. And now you're saying, well, wait a minute, I feel like I'm getting stretched in both directions. So I would look at your financial plan and say, hey, what is the probability of success based on my current assumptions that I will be able to achieve my financial goals?
You are 100% right, and it's likely counterintuitive. When you are in that, or even if you've kind of following the story and you're thinking, okay, well, how would I react? You're likely thinking, okay, I got to triage the other folks. No, it has to start not because you're selfish or not because it's all about you. You have to start with a very clear and objective understanding of where are you financially, because where you are financially is going to absolutely determine how much support you can be to the other two ends of this sandwich, right? So you've got to know, filling out your net worth statement and your present financial position. Here's where we stand financially, assets, liabilities. Here's our cash flow operating system. Here are our financial goals. You update that objectively. That's probably one full meeting, if not two. So you have clarity before you then explore, well, then are these goals different because we need to look at helping mom and dad, because we have to look at the kids. We're going to wade deeper into that scenario and how you approach it. We've got that and more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our weekly 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern time every Saturday morning, also on podcasts at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations at the same time as well, which is why the content's structured the way that it is and broken up and has segments and breaks and all that sort of stuff. It's for the radio. But if you're looking for something more direct, maybe shorter, we've got Next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week, 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, something like that, or shorts as well, all designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life, but from a comprehensive financial planning perspective. The big idea is that you've got 6 different areas of your financial life, and if you treat them separately as 6 different and distinct areas, you're going to have competing goals. You're going to have competing forces, and there's not going to be synergy. You're going to miss opportunities, and it's going to take you longer to reach financial peace and financial goals. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you're made aware every time we drop new content. You leave questions right here. You can share the content as well. We appreciate it. All right.
Good.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
And we'll just, again, build off of each other. And I think that's the right. So we left off with the Dave and Linda getting their getting clarity on their financial situation. I think there's more we could say about that. Yeah. So we could pick that back up before.
Finish that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. The sandwich generation is a real thing. This is where you are typically in your late 40s or early 50s, and you're helping launch your young adult children financially. And then you also maybe either aware that mom and dad might need some help financially, even if that's just making decisions, or maybe financially they actually need support, all while trying to navigate your own financial situation. How do you do that with financial success? We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studio, Kevin Korhorn. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show and subscribe to it there. Rate the program there as well. We appreciate it. Yeah, so Dave and Linda, the scenario we're following right now, 53 and 51, and they've got a child still in college and one that just graduated, helping both financially right now, helping to pay for college and helping the other one get started in their financial life. But Dave's dad was recently diagnosed with dementia. So they're not helping them financially yet or helping them make decisions, but both of those are likely possible. Certainly helping make decisions and manage their finances, but maybe even needing to step in and help with some of the assisted living or memory care or home health care, all while being in that sort of, retirement red zone or the last decade before you retire. So Kevin, we talked about how do you approach this, and you got to start by Dave and Linda. Before you can help others, you got to help yourself. And so how do you help yourself? That's not just like, well, we'll just keep funding our retirement. You probably will, but you need to start by helping yourself by getting clarity over your financial position and your financial goals. Where do you stand?
Right. And that clarity and confidence a component of that is just being coached through the trade-offs. This is what it looks like. If you do this, then that is going to happen. And you have to figure out, if I move these certain levers in my financial life, what are the other levers that are going to move without me touching them? And so once you understand that, because if a leader's job is to define reality, and I am now in the sandwich generation and I'm getting squished, both from the financial requirements and demands of my children, and whether it's a financial requirement or demand of my parents or just the time.
Yeah, the time. Right.
If they just need my time, because there's a huge difference between caring for and taking care of. So caring for is I can drive by and make sure someone's getting the mail and looks like the lawn is getting cut and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Versus, no, I have to get there and make breakfast for mom and dad and help them with this and do this and take them to their appointments and all these other things.
Yeah. So we weren't in the sandwich generation. We were raising kids, young kids. But my father-in-law, so my folks don't live locally. They're out of town and out of sight, out of mind. I'm just kidding. Love you, mom and dad, and we're super close. And but Cindy's folks live in town, and I started noticing some. My father-in-law was sharp, and he was a doer. Always had multiple jobs, and he cared, and he up at 4, and he was just a go-getter. And you got to be super sharp to do that. And we started realizing he's having a hard time juggling this stuff and telling the same stories. And this is mid-50s. And he was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's at, I believe it was 54. And fought it. Didn't really fight it. It just overtakes you. But was dealing with it for 6 years before he passed away a few years ago at, I think he was age 60. Maybe he was still 59. I mean, so very early, so early we had talked about it, but there was no real plan in place, and the options to plan ahead weren't really viable in their situation. Okay, live with that risk. But yeah, we had those discussions of, for, mom, is she going to need financial assistance from us? But before even that, the time assistance of managing the finances, because my father-in-law managed the finances, that was a big undertaking. It was a big change.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, these are the things. And so they're like the hard costs, the actual dollars and the checks I have to write, and the soft costs, which is time or the emotional difficulties of dealing with these things. So this is where you want to have a crystal clear understanding of your own financial life, because it's much easier to say no to, for instance, your children if you have to. Because if you don't have to say no to your children, or you don't know that you should be saying no to your children, you just keep going and saying yes. And as a parent, that's kind of a party. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, you don't want to be the enemy. So, okay, so knowing where you stand, Dave and Linda, knowing where you stand financially, and then, because what that's going to do is that's going to allow you to see where there's margin or where there's adjustments, okay? And maybe with your certified financial planner, and if you've been working with them and they know all 6 areas of your financial life, maybe you then start doing some of those fire drills. Okay, if you needed to help with care, how much might that be? And if we bake that into your financial plan and your financial life right now, what would that displace? Or if if the kids needed X amount to be out of the house or whatever, or financial support for X amount of time, what does that look like? Yep, you can help continue to pay for the car insurance, but you're not going to be able to, help with these sorts of things or whatever. Framing that's going to allow you, knowing where you stand, is going to allow you to know where your margin is and what adjustments. I would say after that, before you get too creative, one of the risks or one of the challenges is the weight and the stress of not knowing what. So I'm going to go up a generation first before going down. Not knowing what level of financial support would you need to provide to mom and dad. And when you don't know, I think most people tend to, that weight feels different. Because it's this unknown, and it could be everything. It could be so much. And then that keeps you up at night and so on. So I would say after knowing your own financial situation, I would then ensure mom and dad have clarity on where they stand financially. And if you've never talked about finances together because it's separate and it's personal and it's confidential, this might be the bridge to that. This might be time. We've done shows about that. When does the next generation, should they know about your financial life? Well, maybe it's right now. But if mom and dad have never worked with a financial planner, they need to have that same financial inventory, because is this a big health and emotional event, or is it also a financial event?
Right.
If it's not going to be a financial event, or so for my in-laws, it was likely not going to be a major financial event for us. But without knowing, we thought, well, do we need to stand at the ready? Should we not be doing these things? Do we need to start building up some cash? Do we need to change what we're doing until we were able to define, okay, well, what does it look like? And so I would say step 2 is building out that financial inventory and having the clarity on where mom and dad stand financially.
Yeah, and mom and dad have a few choices. We like the 70-40 rule, which is by the time you're 70 and by the time your kids are 40, they should know everything about your financial life.
Not who you like more of the kids,
right?
But I'm just kidding.
But you say, well, wait a minute. I have a 40-year-old who's a ne'er-do-well, and they can't know anything about our financial life. That's fine. They should know everything about your financial life that they can handle, and that should equip them. Because you might say, well, okay, I'm Dave, and I'm 53, and we had some issues in the past. I had a loan to my folks that I never paid back, and so there's an awkwardness in us
finances.
Yeah, between us with finances. Good. We'll get mom and dad to go, at least mom, and Dave, if you can go with mom, to a financial planner and have them look at, hey, how do we do this? Because there are a couple things that could be true. They might have long-term care insurance.
Absolutely.
If mom and dad have long-term care insurance, then there's nothing to worry about, possibly. And you say, well, what? Well, I need to know what kind they have, because they might have the kind that I can be taken care of in my house or an assisted living facility or a nursing home. So you want to get those policies out, dust them off, and say, what's the level of coverage that can happen?
They might also have a financial situation that when you look at their retirement, not that they were planning on spending a chunk of dollars for assisted living or home care, and then a nursing home, they might have a financial situation that can absolutely absorb that. The 5 factors to your financial life, the 5 factors to your retirement plan. Retirement spending is one of them. If you help mom and dad build out their financial plan, that's going to include that retirement projection. And if you include, all right, well, what if there begins a $3,000 expense per month of home health care? Their plan might still work. They might feel like it doesn't because they're not spenders, but they have enough saved up and it actually could work. You want to have that clarity before your stress or gets too high or you start making adjustments to your financial life that may not be necessary. We got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. P.S. Forgot about the 5 seconds early.
Dude, I was all over that, but...
Yep, sorry. You just take it from me.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I love the idea of saying mom and dad might have, because we said mom and dad might have long-term care. There's a couple other things that mom and dad might have.
Yeah.
And really, if we hit those 3 things, these are the things that Dave and Linda should
put in place for themselves.
Possibly at least consider.
Yeah, love it. And then, just spoiler alert, kids go last. So put your own oxygen mask on first, address the mom and dad situation, and then deal with the kids. Because that is the one where, we'll get to it on the show.
Okay, we're going into the third. Yes, I said.
Yep. All right, here we go. You're trying to help your own financial situation. Maybe this is crunch time for you and making big financial progress. Certainly you don't want to take your eye off the ball, but now you're at a spot where you might need to help mom and dad financially or even just make some financial decisions, but you're also still helping your young adult children. How do you juggle all of that? And here's the question we're about to turn to is if that's not you and you think that would never happen, but it could happen. Are there things that you should be doing right now, planning ahead to help give yourself more choice and more flexibility and more options just in case you do face that? You can do so better prepared. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studio today, Kevin Korhorn, Josh Gregory still out. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search The Wise Money Show. Following a scenario here that I just sort of laid out, in your early 50s, you're still helping kids, one in college, one just graduated in college, and also found out dad's got dementia. So you first have to start by getting clarity on your own financial situation. build out your net worth and your cash flow analysis, your cash flow operating system, so you have clarity where you stand, update your financial goals, see where there's margin or where there's adjustments that you could do. But before you carry all that weight, before you start making changes, then next is making sure mom and dad have clarity on where they stand financially. And that's to help answer the mom and dad might have blank.
And the first one we looked at was mom and dad might have long-term care insurance.
Right.
Now, it is much more common if dad is in his 80s. There was a time when more people bought long-term care insurance. I bought long-term care insurance when I was 44. And I was in Indiana. We were moving to Michigan. Indiana's a partnership state. And so it was a great deal for me to have that. Now, I've gone through all the iterations because what they do is periodically they say, hey, listen, if you want your current coverage to stay your current coverage, your premium's going to go up. But here's what we're willing to do. We're willing to reduce your coverage and your premium or keep your premium the same. And so just being in the business and seeing the financial disruption that a long-term care stay can create, I've said, because, I don't know, this was more common years ago, but, dad who was in his 70s would say, well, or 60s, I don't want long-term care. If something happens to me, just take me out behind the barn and shoot me.
Okay, so, and I know we're joking, but that was the one conversation I had with my father-in-law. This would be, before there was any sign of anything, he was perfectly healthy. This was years before anything. And we were out to dinner, just two of us. We went to a hockey game together, Notre Dame. And he said, oh God. And he was telling me about his folks and his great-grandparents. And he said, oh, Mike, if something ever happens, just put a pillow over my head. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's fun to say. Guys, that is not a solution. That's not a...
No, that is a solution up until the moment you find out there's an issue. And as soon as the issue surfaces, people say, we are going to get dad the best care anywhere. I don't care what it costs. I don't care this. I don't care that. We're doing it.
Yeah.
So this is where...
So mom and dad could have long-term care insurance, could have some coverage for this. Second, I shared they could have a financial situation that can actually cover a lot of these costs, or at least cover the first chunk of years of care. What else?
Well, yeah, so they could have income and investments that would take care of it. There are products that are a hybrid. So there's a life insurance / long-term care policy structure where you say, hey, if I die, it pays out X. If I have a long-term care stay and need, it pays out Y. Yeah. So they might have one of those. They might also have an annuity. So if they have an annuity, look at what they have, because with some annuities, there is something called an income doubler. So if I had an annuity that I could turn on and draw income and pretend it would pay $50,000 a year, there's what's called an income doubler, where instead of paying 50, it would pay 100 for, say, a period of 5 years or something along those lines.
None of these are recommendations. This is just knowing. These are tools. Just
find out if they have it.
Find out if they do, because it would be awful to say, all right, well, dad handled the finances. He's got early onset. He's no longer able to. And I'm assuming mom knows everything, all these intricate details, and she would have brought this up if we had this, right? Probably not. These things are wildly complicated. And so you want to check and see what they have, what's available.
Right. And if you're trying to conserve assets for mom and dad, you say, well, if dad goes into a home, he's going to deplete the savings and everything that they have, or we're going to have to sell something that we were hoping to keep in the family, blah, blah, blah. Then you want to go to an elder care attorney and say, hey, what are our choices? Now, that's going to vary depending on the state that you're in and a number of other things, but there are typically things that you can do to conserve assets and protect them from a spend down, and it might actually cost you. It might cost you a lot.
So let's go there, because that, again, is part of this second step, which is understanding and getting clarity on mom and dad's financial situation. I wouldn't just jump to, well, we've got to go to an elder law attorney, because that's the hook and ladder. That's the super creative play that you practice a lot and maybe only use once throughout the season, or you don't even use it. This is not the immediate play. Right, you got to look at where they stand financially and what your options are. Yeah, part of that is going to be reviewing their estate plan and probably talking to an elder law attorney. But there's likely going to be some disruption in some pros and cons. Very difficult choice if you want to go with if we gift some dollars or we restructure some of the assets to be prepared for a future event for Medicaid. That likely it's not going to be an easy choice. So I would put that on the farther end of stage 2. And you want to know first where mom and dad stand financially.
Right. And again, now you can make decisions based on, well, what do we have to do?
Yes.
And what your options are, because then you might say, well, we thought, because the financial worry, that's where clarity and confidence is so important. Because if you're Dave and Linda and you're just worried about it, I'd say remove the worry.
Yeah.
Because now you know, hey, we're going to have to make a meaningful sacrifice to see to it that dad gets what we think he should have.
Yeah. And from this, you are likely able to start planning. All right, so it looks like we wouldn't need to step in financially to help maybe manage and make some decisions, but financially help for another 3 years or 5 years, assuming that things play out the way we expect. Now let's build that into our plan. Well, what do we think? Would that displace anything else? Should we be aggressive with our retirement savings right now because we might need to back off? Do we need to then, now step 3, start talking to the kids and saying, all right, well, guys, we've got this runway. So child who's still in college, we're going to help you the way we have been helping you until you graduate. But then after that, you're going to be financially on your own. And then child who's already graduated, living at home, here's the parameters of our financial assistance. Listen, you're working, you're living here rent free. Therefore, you're paying your own car insurance. You're paying your own cell phone. Like, it's time to start doing those things. Like, that's going to give you the clarity on what decisions you need to make. Now, Kevin.
Well, no, I mean, I even think about the child in college, because you say, well, where are we going to get the money to care for mom and dad? You might say to the child in college, hey, you're probably going to need to take some student loans.
Yep.
Because this stretching, this cash flow stretching that's probably happening right now anyway, if Dave and Linda are trying to max fund their retirement plans and put money into IRAs and this and that and the other thing, and take care of tuition if they weren't right where they needed to be for education planning, you might say, hey, all right, youngest child in college, you're going to take some student loans, and we might later be in a position to help you pay some of those off. But for now, we need you to take some student loans. Yeah. Because the tricky thing is, and I've seen this a number of times, I can think of a particular client. This person had 4 different pensions that they qualified for. So they were going to get 4 pensions and Social Security, and they had money in their 401k. So they like, retirement was set. But when they weren't sandwiched from the parents, it was just the children in college. And they're looking and going, look, we got to figure out if, when we order pizza, is it just cheese pizza, or can we afford to get pepperoni on the pizza?
Yeah.
And they're like, this doesn't seem very fun, because we can see in the future, financially, we're going to be totally fine when we get there. But right now, we've got stretch marks on our cash flow.
Yeah, believe it or not, that actually is very, very common as well. And so you might not feel the full sandwich, but you're definitely feeling that financial pressure. Starts with clarity, working with your certified financial planner. They're going to provide confidence and then creativity on how you navigate it. All right, we got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
All right, landing the plane, as
yes.
Michael Paul Roth Bernard would say.
This is going to be all 4 segments on this.
Okay, let's have some fun.
We can turn it to how then would, that do mom and dad have as being the list of, all right, if you're Dave and Linda. We probably need to talk about Dave and Linda.
Sure.
Yep. Dave and Linda's financial situations and financial priorities. I think there's a little bit there, but then Dave and Linda preparing to have more options when they are in their 80s. So,
I mean, that ties into a show that we did just recently on what kind of tax diversification do I need?
Right.
Because I could access the basis in my Roth IRA. So
Don't do that, Kevin. Okay.
all right.
Fourth segment, land and plane. We'll touch on, all right, Dave and Linda still in this situation. Sort of we go back to them because we,
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do it.
and then we'll pivot over to, all right, how can Dave and Linda plan ahead so that they wouldn't be in a similar position? So here we go. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. Here with me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn. Every episode of the Wise Money Show, as well as a lot of other content, is on the Wise Money YouTube channel. If you haven't gone there, I'd encourage you to do so. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there because we have a full library, over 2,000 videos there, all designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life. Every talk show that you're listening to right now, that's there. The full library going back to the early days from the very beginning. But then we've got next wise step videos that air all throughout the work week, 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, 12 minutes long, taking a financial concept. What are the changes being proposed for Social Security? How does that impact your plan? And lots of other things right there, as well as shorts and so on, all designed to help you take your next wise step in your financial life from a comprehensive financial planning perspective. So go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there. You can leave questions and comments there as well. We appreciate it. All right, still navigating this very common sandwich generation scenario or concern. Dave and Linda in their early 50s, helping their kids financially get out of college, get through college, and then one who's recently out, but then also are now bracing themselves for maybe helping mom and dad. Dad's just recently diagnosed with early onset. So Dave and Linda, getting clarity on their own financial situation first. That's step one. Knowing where you stand, knowing where you are with your goals, knowing where you stand with margin. What adjustments could you make? Come back to that in just a second. You then need to look at, well, where do mom and dad stand financially? So therefore, is this just an emotional, painful process, or is it going to be financial? Are they going to need some support? You need to know that, not just speculate. If you don't know, you're going to be very worried and you're not going to be able to prepare. And then always last, so step 3 is then, okay, then how does this impact the kids? Do you need to define reality differently for the kids and put some structure to the financial support that they were getting? Now that leads back to then, you, in your financial situation, Dave and Linda, you were looking at, well, where do you have margin? What adjustments could you make? With that clarity on your financial situation, mom and dad's financial situation, and then the kids, you then can evaluate, well, what are our trade-offs? What should we do? Some of the options. You've never had a cash flow operating system. You've never had a budget, which, by the way, dirty word, but it's only that only addresses your monthly cash flow need. You need a cash flow operating system. We call it 3 bank account system. So it handles your monthly expenses, your non-monthly expenses, and your emergency expenses. But maybe you haven't had that structure. And really, the thing that would drive a lot of clarity in all of this is to implement that structure. That could be a trade-off. Maybe in that structure, you realize we've been doing 3 vacations a year, and yeah, we want to have a lot of experiences. But listen, if we're going to need to help dad or support mom, we can't be gallivanting in the Caribbean, or we can't be doing these trips. We're going to scale back some of the trips that we've been doing. That's going to create some financial flexibility. That could be one. Maybe this accelerates we were thinking about moving. The house is getting a little tired, but we're going to stay put, and we're actually going to be aggressive about paying that mortgage off, even though it's a low interest rate. That's going to free up cash flow by X amount, so we're more prepared. Bam, you're back to that. Maybe you've been contributing pre-tax to your 401k, and all of a sudden you think, we need to have tax diversification just in case something happens. I want to be able to get our hands on some dollars without paying a penalty or tax. So you start adding Roth. Maybe you've been maxing out, but your retirement plan is on ice and you can back it off to 10%. I'm throwing a lot at you, but equipped with this information, that clarity, you now have the confidence, and you can apply that confidence and creativity to figuring out, well, what adjustments should you make, or what's even on the table for options or trade-offs you should make in the future.
Right. And when we had looked at this with, all right, what do mom and dad have? And as you're kind of uncovering what's in their financial life and their financial situation, Dave and Linda should be looking at those exact same things for their own self.
I know.
Because I think, as I'm listening, I don't know why, but I hear what you say and my brain immediately wants to argue the opposite, because you're talking about scaling back. you might talk about scaling up. You might look and say, hey, if someday I am going to have cognitive issues, I want to go do stuff now.
Yeah.
And so you say, well, guess what? We're going to, we've proven to ourselves that we've got the margin. We're going to go do stuff now. We're going to go do stuff by ourselves. We're going to bring the kids along with us. What are we going to do because our financial goals are taken care of? And what are we going to do with the margin?
Yeah.
One thing that you might consider with the margin is looking at the types of protection against a long-term care stay or an at-home stay. And that was, as we said originally, there's long-term care insurance that if you're, I'd say you probably should look at that in your 50s and your early 50s if you can, and if you're healthy. Yep. So if you're not healthy in your early 50s, it might cost more or you might not be able to get it. But I'd want to know. I'd want to put myself in a position to say yes or no to that. That's both a cash flow and a risk management decision. The next thing that you could look at is you could say, all right, there are permanent life insurance policies that have a long-term care rider on that if in the event that I go into a nursing home, that will be taken care of.
That's intentional jargon there. If you said, I don't know what permanent life insurance is, what does that mean? What's a rider? No, using those words intentionally because that's what you'd probably need to navigate as you make these choices. But there's temporary insurance and there's permanent insurance. So term, I'm just renting the coverage for 20 years, for 30 years, for 15 years. That's temporary. Many people have a temporary need. But flipping this, looking at, well, I want my life insurance to help also manage my long-term care risk. Now that's not temporary. That's now permanent. And you're looking at whole life or universal life, those sorts of things, which typically many people just sort of cast off and say too expensive, that those policies are sold. And yeah, there's been a lot of abuse there. However, if you are looking and saying, well, I'd like to, I don't know. I don't want to say kill two birds with one stone, but sort of the same thing. I want to manage two risks with one policy.
Yeah.
Then maybe your life insurance need does shift from temporary to permanent. And you look at those features and say, yeah, because probably the biggest complaint about long-term care insurance only is the price. And then second is it only covers long-term care. And the rebuttal is just like if your house burns down or your home insurance, it doesn't cover like maintenance updates. It just if a bad event happens, it's there. If a bad event doesn't happen, you won, but you're still paying the premium. Well, with long-term care or with a life insurance hybrid policy, this actually covers that. It's there if you need long-term care, but listen, if you don't, there's still a benefit to you because when you pass away, there's going to be that death benefit.
Yeah, and so these are tools, and you say, well, you shouldn't even discuss these tools on the Wise Money Show.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? There are folks that have annuities, non-qualified annuities with meaningful gain that it could make sense to repurpose those dollars. I'm working with some folks right now, and one of the spouses has 3 life insurance policies with a bunch of cash value in there. There's a bunch of permanent cash value. And we're looking and we're saying, hey, the mortality tables are different now than when these policies were put in force. And what should we do? Should we emancipate those dollars?
Yeah.
Or should we purpose them in the right type of insurance? And that's where you say, hey, I've got some flexibility here with if I do a life long-term care hybrid.
So I'm going to bring it back to the C's. So you want to have clarity and confidence, clarity on where you stand, confidence that, in the face of an uncertain future, I know where I stand and I know where I can pivot. And then the creativity. And that often is, so Kevin was talking about some tools and I don't like some of those tools. And yet, well, it depends on the job. If I have so Kevin, I had a tree fall in my yard. I don't have a chainsaw. I'm just not comfortable. We needed that tool. And so, hey, Kevin, can we borrow yours? Can you help? I've got the poison ivy to show for it. And so, but then what's the fourth C? If you've got clarity on where you stand financially, And then you've got confidence in the face of an uncertain future because of how you're going to manage those risks. And you've got creative ideas applied to help you manage those risks. It creates calm. And I can't think, just going back to the beginning and this entire scenario, it's the opposite of calm. It's chaos. This is another C, right? And if you had clarity and confidence and creativity, it results in calm even when you're facing challenging financial situations. That's what we want for you. That's what is possible for you working with your certified financial planner. All right, that's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Kevin Corhorn, all of us at Corhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.